Hey everyone, we're the STEAM Sisters. I'm SANDHYA.
And I'm SWAPNA.
And this is the STEAM League, where we get to learn about the day-to-day careers, aspirations, and origin stories of incredible superheroes in science, technology, engineering, art, and math.
And today we're super excited because we are honored with Dr. Jane Thornton.
And Jane is a sport and exercise medicine physician, advocate for physical activity, and a former Olympic rower for Team Canada.
Super impressive. You wear lots of hats. It's so wonderful to have you on the STEAM League, Jane. And it's so nice to see you again.
Thank you. Likewise, it's such an honor to be here.
It's an honor to have you with us. We're going to jump right in with a fun little game.
And it's going to be the quick fire round of questions. We're going to pick some questions out of this fancy hat.
Nice.
Okay, so first question, favorite workout music?
90s rap music. I love it.
That's an awesome answer.
Great decade for music. Totally agree.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Really good workout.
Do you have a
music.
go-to song?
You know what? I love Beastie Boys. I mean, not all the lyrics, right? But the beat is good. Yeah, so some of those old school sounds or whatever, just they're pretty fun.
Get moving. Okay, next one is, who was your biggest inspiration?
Oh, that's big. You know what? I think my mom, to be honest, she's just always talked about, yeah, that's my short answer, is my mom.
Always talked about what?
Just always being, she was a teacher and loved teaching students and loved writing and things like that. So she just instilled that love of writing and academics in me.
Oh, that's amazing.
That is
Your next question, Jane, is what is your favorite exercise or exercise equipment?
You know, I have to say I've been rowing for almost 28 years now, and I still love it. I still go out almost every day. So yeah, absolutely. Still the rowing shell and oars.
That's how you roll.
Yeah. Nice.
We're gonna try and throw a few of those in there. Okay, your next one is, what's your favorite food, Jane?
Mint chocolate chip ice cream. I love it.
That's
So good.
awesome.
Really, I know.
We're kids here.
Yes.
Mine is more maple.
Oh, okay. Still good.
Still good. Yeah, thank you.
Can't go wrong with it, to be honest.
And what would your superpower be?
How silly is this? But I would love to be able to talk to animals and understand them. I mean, in medicine, it would probably be X-ray vision. Like, let's be honest, that would probably be the best, or MRI vision. But talking to animals would be pretty amazing.
Okay, MRI vision, that's the first time we've heard that one, so that's pretty unique. And talking to animals is a great answer, because, I mean, we always wonder what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Do you speak any other languages?
I speak French and Italian, so starting to learn German. So yeah, I love languages. No animal languages yet, though.
What's your favorite place to visit?
Italy, hands down.
Yeah? What part of Italy?
I've only been to Rome upwards, and I love it. I would love to go down to the south as well. Beautiful people, great food, gorgeous language. Yeah, it's an amazing place.
Who would you want to share a brunch with from history?
I would just say probably even just the father of Medicare in terms of like there's Emmett Hall, who's a Supreme Court judge, and he's kind of installed Medicare into our country. So he was actually one of the fathers of it, I guess. But I would just like to be able to speak to some of the members of Parliament, the big players who put Medicare and kind of designed healthcare policy for Canada, and just understand where they're coming from. There's a lot of so Tommy Douglas is who we all know, and both of them said a lot about preventative medicine, which is a big passion of mine. I'd love to learn more on their thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would definitely want to join you for that brunch.
That would be
Yes, you are invited.
Oh, Jane, do you have a motto that you sort of live by?
Yeah, I learned it from a coach, and I don't even know if he said these words, but his attitude was basically summed up in 3 words, and it was allow for excellence, and that's the motto I live by. So allow for excellence in yourself, but also in everyone you interact with, so that patients, students, your kids, whoever it may be, and it's really neat to have that perspective. So,
your favorite subject in school?
Yeah, you know what? I tried to take a lot of different subjects. I like law, I love French, I love math, science. Yeah, so I don't know if I had a particular one. Gym class is my least favorite, to be honest. So, but the rest of them, I'd say, were pretty much all the same in terms of, I think it was just more of a curiosity that I love learning.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, I love learning and the variety as well.
And it's okay about gym class. You ended up as an Olympian anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It just goes to show you don't have to be good at gym class.
This is your last quick fire question. What's your favorite sport that you did not compete in?
Yeah, you know what? I love cross-country skiing. I competed, if it counts, for one semester when I was in medical school, and just because they needed people on their team, not that I was any good. But it's just such a beautiful sport. It's outside in mountains and, just beautiful places, but and it's also a very challenging sport. So I love to watch it too. It's really exciting.
Yeah, I like cross-country skiing. It feels like more of a full body workout.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It's nice scenery to do.
Yeah, to distract you. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for participating in the quick fire and all of your super answers.
Thank you.
Perfect. So next, what we're going to do is explore the who, what, where, when, why, and how of Dr. Jane Thornton and her career to learn more about her career. And I think I'll just wear this for this part.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I just wish I had one to match you.
So your first question here, Jane, is you're a sport and exercise medicine physician. What is it like being in this career?
It's really fun. I grew up when I was starting to row and starting to get into elite sports, especially. It was just one person who was our team doctor who really motivated me to see, wow, there's something here that's amazing in terms of her career. She got to take care of high performance athletes and tried to keep people active, went to conferences, took care of the Olympic teams. I just thought, wow, this career actually exists. This seems so perfect. And so I think it's a tremendous job. It's the ability to give back to sport, give back to athletes. They're incredible ambassadors for our country, but also provinces, cities. And it's just really unique, a place to be in a person's life and a developing athlete's life. And it's just an immense privilege, I think, to be part of their care team and see them excel, or even just keep them active, or, even the people just trying to learn sport for the first time or be active. I think a tremendous opportunity to show my gratitude for what sport's given me.
That's amazing.
That is amazing.
And it's really cool that you get to play a role in that as well. Your certifications are MD, PhD, CCFP, Sport and Exercise Medicine, DIP, Sport Physician, IOC, which is all very impressive. But what do all the letters mean?
Oh, yeah. I don't know. No, so MD, so medical doctor, PhD was for research that I did before going into medical school when I was rowing. The CCFP is a designation for family doctors that are certified. And then you have a little SEM at the back of that, which means that I just have additional certification in sport and exercise medicine. And then the DIP Sport Physician IOC is all one. And that's just an additional certificate that was put out by the International Olympic Committee to help kind of raise the bar for sport and exercise physicians around the world. And so they're just little certifications that have come with the training that I've done in order to kind of get to the level I can for the kind of care that I provide. But yeah, most of them are clinical, and then there's a little bit of research stuff in there too.
You were also a rower, which we mentioned before, and you won the gold medal in the 2006 World Rowing Championships and placed an incredible 4th in the 2008 Olympics. How did you get into rowing, and what were these, in our opinion, incredible experiences like?
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I was a sedentary kid. I hated gym class, as I said. I didn't want to do any sports. I was always the last picked on teams. Then I got voluntold to join a Learn to Row team when I was in junior high, so middle school in New Brunswick. I had to go because my friends were there, and yeah, I got signed up, and I hated the hard work aspect of it. But it's interesting. It's one of those things, a sport that you can get to do later in life. You don't need to start when you're 3 or 4. And so I had the chance to learn what it was like to all of a sudden work hard at something and then actually get better at it. And I saw all these changes that happened in me as a result, not just health-wise or physiological, but even just in how to be a team member, it opened up my social life. Like, it just helped me concentrate in school. So I just saw a huge impact of sport in my life. So I just wanted to keep going at it. It was a long time before I got to go to the Olympics. I had to work my way up through every single level all the time. But I think that love of learning and being curious, even throughout my Olympic athletic career, just made me realize, even if I didn't hit overnight success, it just made me think, oh, I love learning this new skill. And it kept me motivated for a really long time. And I'm still learning stuff, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
awesome.
It does sound like a lot of fun, and a testament to your love of learning and hard work.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool that you can start something a little bit later on in life and have this much success and still love doing it. That is awesome.
Yeah. I think it's key. It's how you're introduced to something, right? So I think if we all learn, if we do something because we love it, we're hopefully going to stick with it longer. There's a lot of teammates of mine that didn't do anything after they went to the Olympics or did a World Championships or whatever. They've kind of dropped out of sport. And I think that's a lucky thing for me, is just that because it was always fun from the beginning, that it's okay to go back to and just have that sense of discovery or helping other people love the sport too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I really think it's really cool that sport, no matter what level you're at, can help you not just build the physical skills, but also those other skills, teamwork,
concentration. That's really
awesome.
Great. That's awesome. And I really like that point you made about you don't have to start when you're 3 or 4. So
Yes.
if you're watching, if you're interested in a sport and you did start when you're 3 or 4, it's never too late.
How did you end up transitioning from your background in sport that we just spoke about to the medical field?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty seamless transition, to be honest. And I think it was probably because even throughout my athletic career, because I don't think I was a natural athlete, or I still am not, from the beginning, it made me realize that I had to have something else as well. I couldn't just rely on my athletic fame. And so I kept my interest up in sciences, and as I started getting curious about all the effects that sport had on my life, I started getting really interested in kinesiology, which is the study of human movement and sciences and things like that. And so that just directed my career path. So I think that both of them together just have really been helpful. As I was involved in sport, it gave me a completely different angle and perspective on what I was doing within my research and clinical training, and the same goes for the opposite. Just to have that clinical training has given me a new kind of angle on sport and helping our athletes. So for me, after Beijing, which was in 2008, the day after the closing ceremonies, actually right after the closing ceremonies, because it was early morning at that point, I hopped on a plane and went straight to Toronto, and that day I started my first day of medical school. And so in terms of transition, there wasn't a lot of time. And so it was pretty interesting that way. But I think for anyone, if you're transitioning out of sport or into something new, sometimes it takes a little while to get adjusted. And but it's just also being patient and learning try to be excellent in some other area. But yeah, for sure, the lessons from sport totally carry over to science and academics, teaching, medicine, absolutely. And I think it's super important even now to still be involved in sport and activity. It just helps mentally as well. It just keeps me focused and also in a better mood, I think.
So many psychological benefits to sport and physical activity.
Yeah, for sure. And that story just reiterates your always allow excellence. So
yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Practice what you preach.
Yeah.
Your question is, what does it mean to prescribe exercise? It's something that you talk about a lot in your work. And how do physicians do that, and why do they do that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because when I went to med school, even though I was super passionate about physical activity and sport, what I noticed is that it was an amazing experience, but we just didn't have any teaching on it, which surprised me because I thought, wow, like if anyone could see the benefits that you have from activity and moving around and sport and exercise, and they would see that this is a huge, it says, we often say things like it's as good as if it was medication for a lot of different illnesses and conditions. So it just made me think that we could all, it's not new, the field is not new, but one of these concepts of trying to make it easier for doctors to talk about exercise and help their patients, not just from a prevention standpoint, so not just to stay healthy, but also to help treat medical conditions and things like that.
I'm really glad folks like you are starting to talk about that a lot more, because in the training that I've had, it's been minimal too. So it's a good direction to go in. Yeah,
right. And I think patients want to hear about it from their doctors. So it's just a matter of using the time that we have when we talk to our patients about something else. Like it doesn't mean that we don't give them medication, but sometimes it's just an alternative. And I think people now are understanding that's a really good alternative. It's something that they want to hear more about.
Related to that, can anyone do exercise, and are there any conditions because of which you should do exercise?
Yeah, so it really depends. What we try to make exercise and activity accessible to patients and to people no matter where they're at, and that can look very different depending on the person in front of you, right? Not everyone can walk or run, but a lot of people can. So sometimes that's where we start, is even just talking to people about learning just to go for a brisk walk or something along those lines. For some people that will be too light of an activity and they need to be given advice about other things that they can do. But I'd say over the lifespan, there isn't really a time frame that you can't talk about exercise. I mean, you might hear my sidekicks in the background. My kids were even active just right from day one. In terms of the kids, you learn to do things like tummy time. So we talk to new moms and even when they're pregnant, to talk about being physically active as soon as babies are born, to help them learn about very soon after, helping them with things like tummy time and walking around. And kids need to get about an hour of physical activity a day. So even at that young age, it can be instilled. And I have patients who are in their 90s that are very active, and they've just seen how it's been helpful for their quality of life, but also for their longevity. In terms of conditions particularly, there's not a lot that can, it really just means that we modify the activity. I mean, there's what we call in medicine like a contraindication, meaning that there's reasons that are firm rules not to. So if someone's very sick in the moment, or if they have some kind of condition that's not like a medical illness or condition that they don't have good treatment for, then that would be times where we kind of hold off on that and make sure that everything's under control. But other than that, we can usually talk about starting low and just gradually trying to incorporate a little bit of physical activity. And then for people with, that to have different abilities, who we also can take into consideration all of those and try to come up with a program for them to still be active as well.
I love the idea of, building those habits early and then modifying as needed as you go on from there. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it's never too early and it's never too late.
Right.
The world of sport and exercise medicine is super exciting, but before we go on to talk more about Jane's career, we want to play a quick game called Explain That Photo. And we couldn't decide which photo, so we've got a couple of them for you. And
cool.
We've got here. Okay, we'll start with, say, this one. Can you explain this photo?
Yes. That's a photo of beautiful Lucerne in Switzerland, which is a gorgeous city, as you can tell by the photo. And that was taken after a race. Every year on the national team, we would race the World Cup in Lucerne, Switzerland. They have a beautiful race course. And so what we would do there is, that's a picture of the lake beside where we would race. And after we raced as a national team, we would all jump into that lake to cool off after a race. And then after that, just go have some kind of great Swiss food. So it's just, that's basically the view out of our hotel where we would stay when we would race. So it's, yeah, as you can see, it's like, yeah, kind of a dreamy spot to be in.
Yeah, check out those mountains.
What?
I know, right? Yeah, that's that's Mount Pilatus actually in the background as far as I can remember. Anyway, you can hike that. So we would hike that up, but after all the racing was done. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, another one that we've got here is.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah,
yeah, so that fist bump, and I'm actually not wearing it today because I've been taking off my rings when I'm seeing patients during this pandemic, but that's an Olympic ring. This was just to support, so this is after my rowing career has been over, and that's just a local race in St. Catharines, Ontario. And it was an Olympic day to just basically to cheer on our next generation of rowers. So it was a photo to kind of, everyone was supposed to do that. And it's just to say, you know, you still love your sport even after you're done and your Olympic career is over. You can still be active and love what you're doing. So a bit of an encouragement photo for there.
Oh, cool. Once a rower, always a rower.
Yeah, well, I think so, yeah.
They give you a photo too. That's great.
Yeah.
We have another one.
Hey, nice. The Matterhorn.
We just really
This is, I know, right? So I lived in Switzerland for a year, and these are where some of these beautiful photos are coming as well. And so that's when I was doing a year of preventative medicine in a hospital, university hospital in Lausanne. But that's a picture of the Matterhorn, which is one of the iconic pictures in Switzerland. I did not climb that. I only have that picture, but so it's just another gorgeous place. And I don't know, I don't know about you guys, but I feel very calm and centered whenever I'm out in nature. It just reminds me, it just makes me feel so alive and so much better about life in general when I can get outside in forests and look at mountains and things like that. So
yeah. There's something incredibly majestic about a mountain.
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
I love how you captured the light in there too. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that was probably unplanned. Yeah.
Okay, the photo in this Explain That Photo game.
I really, really love this one.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's funny. So that's actually a photo of a trophy. It's kind of embarrassingly called the Jane Thornton Trophy, and it's from rowing. It's so it was built to present to the top university women's 8 in Canada every year, and so they get presented with that very big trophy that is an oar, just cut off. The blade is kind of the big part that goes into the water, the red part that you can see in the photo. And that's the part that enters the water. But it was, and the wood that it's on that you can't really see is from Fredericton, so from the St. John River, and that's where I grew up and learned where to row. And so, yeah, every year it's a trophy that's awarded to the top women's 8, which is a crew that races at the Canadian University Championships.
I thought that was really, really incredible because it has parts of your own history in there as well.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, I was really touched to have a trophy, right? Yeah.
Well, this is
pretty amazing. All right, and so obviously you're quite impressive, and we can't wait to learn more. So we've got a few more career questions for you.
Sure, you bet.
Okay, so the next one is, and we mentioned this a little bit already, you worked with the International Olympic Committee. What was it like? You did a little bit of your training through there?
Yeah, I've helped them on just a couple of things. Right now I'm helping as part of the Medical and Scientific Committee they have mostly the Scientific Committee for a conference that's coming up next year. It was postponed this year because of the pandemic. It's a conference on injury and illness and prevention, basically. And so it's kind of a worldwide conference. It's a real privilege to be on that committee because we just look at all the research coming in and decide who will be speaking and presenting at that conference. And so the group that I'm in is kind of all my heroes. So it's nice to be a part of that. The other thing that I've been involved in the past is they were supporting, International Olympic Committee was supporting Global Active Cities Initiative and active well-being initiatives. They're basically the same program. And what they're trying to look at basically is whenever we all see the Olympics, we see sport at its finest, we see people at their healthiest. And the host city, the city that's holding the Olympics, is just putting on this huge show. And I think in general, there's that side of the Olympics, but they also want to try to give more of a legacy to help physical activity and sport in the cities that they work in. And so it's a part of trying to develop a system for cities to have more physically active projects and things like that that they can really get behind. So it's just trying to learn how to make a city more active and see how to support that city in their goals.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
And we've heard that one of your initiatives is called My Active Ingredient. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's just I worked on a project before that, which was looking at this thing that maybe not everyone would understand. We call it kind of peer-to-peer healthcare, but it's basically patients talking to patients about their conditions. And we've done this for generations. So new moms will talk to new moms and say, what do you do about this? Or parents will talk, if you have if you feel sick, you ask your friend about it. What did they do? They were sick, and things like that. So for generations, for as long as we can remember, we've been asking not just doctors, but other people about how they treat things. And so I think there's a lot of power in that, especially now that we're so connected in a way that we never have been before. And so this initiative the project was just basically to get to help patients, and we're really just at the start, of patients that have chronic diseases. So they have problems that, heart problems or blood pressure problems or just health problems in general, and they want to be more active. And it's starting to get the conversation going in one place for people with those conditions to talk about how they've overcome that and tried to be physically active. And also have doctors and researchers help guide them. So just at least give them a sense of, here's some good resources, and then just step out of the way, basically. So I just think it's, there's so many barriers ways that we don't become active or exercise because we don't know if it's safe, and we don't know if it's going to be good for us, or we don't know where to go. And so my purpose is to try to help make it easier for people to talk to each other, but also figure out better ways for themselves to be active.
Yeah, I love that that's collaborative like that. And it also sounds like it's really good for social support too, which I'm also seeing from my research.
Yeah, I mean, I hope it to be. Like, we don't have all the answers, I think. Definitely, it's not just I think. We don't have all the answers as doctors, for example. And usually the experts are always the patients, right? The people that are actually going through that. So that's why I think it's so necessary to get people's perspective on what can help them be more active.
What a great idea.
That's awesome.
And our next question for you is, what's one mistake that you've made that turned out to be a pretty great lesson?
I've made so many mistakes because I think it's so important to make mistakes. Like, I think just kind of trying stuff out and then realizing that's not the direction to go in. There's a lot of times where I think I don't know, maybe I've tried to make, I'll give an example. I think even just in Switzerland, or when I came back to Canada, a lot of the time, you realize that if you're trying to do something for a patient or something like that, I think this is what prompted patients being the experts on it. You just realize is like, you could design the best looking handout or the best looking website or something like that. But if it doesn't resonate, it means that if the patient can't relate to what they see, then it's completely useless. So I think there's been a lot of mistakes in trial and error that I've looked at it by thinking, well, this is what would be good for this person or this patient, and it just ends up first and foremost is trying to learn from whoever you're interacting with. And I think that means, I mean, it means teachers, it means with their students, it means doctors and their patients, parents with their kids, also just having a sense of what's going to work for that person, and try to involve them in that decision. So I think it was an important lesson. Like, fortunately, there hasn't been some major catastrophe yet, but it's just the little things like, oh, okay, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's going to steer me in a completely different direction.
Yeah, well, that really highlights the idea that everyone's opinion and perspective can contribute to what you're doing, and what ends up being a really cool collaborative project.
What is the most surprising thing you've learned as a sport and exercise medicine physician?
Surprising, I think, is I think it's that the sport and exercise doctors, I guess what I've seen as the biggest surprise is that there's a lot of people who want to be sports doctors with big professional teams. And I don't think I ever got into that because I never saw, like, I don't know, I've never envisioned myself being a professional athlete. I really like taking care of athletes. Yes, it could be elite in the sense of, but they're not being paid. They just love sport and want to be involved in it. But I think a big surprise for me was the amount of people that aren't in sport, but that are, and this may sound a little naive, but that are just as passionate about sport and about being active, and just about the incredible impact that we can have on people who want to stay active. That maybe, maybe they're starting running at 70 years of age and they've never been involved in sport. And then the dramatic impact that we can have by treating them as an athlete, as the athlete that they are, and with that same amount of kind of seriousness, attention as we would to a professional athlete or an Olympic gold medalist. I mean, sport is one of those things that brings out passion in many, many people. And I think that, it's a pleasant surprise, but just one of those things where I felt that, oh yeah, you know what, it's not just about these high level athletes or these people that are really invested in sport. People are just as passionate about it, and we can have a really big impact no matter what level of sport that they're in, or even just physically active people too.
That's awesome. Physical activity is for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a sport and exercise medicine physician, you've got a lot going on. You wear a lot of hats, for sure. So what is one of your favorite ways to de-stress?
I think that one of the ways that I de-stress, I'm an early riser, so I wake up at 4:30 each morning, and I've learned to do that only through rowing. It's when the water is nice and it's before school and everything like that. So I've just gotten into that routine. And then I think what I try to do is start off the day with some kind of exercise, especially outdoors if I can. That doesn't work so well in the winter and when it's still dark and everything like that, but I try to do something outdoors every day. And that's probably my biggest way of de-stressing, is just being out in nature. It doesn't need to be a huge activity, even a walk in the forest or something along those lines. And then what I've tried to do over the past couple of years is add some time even in what we call kind of mindfulness meditation. So it's just kind of sitting and doing like some deep breathing and things like that, just as a way to almost just disconnect, because otherwise it can be so busy during the day that you're right, you can just kind of go from one thing to another and not take that time. But that's definitely just a few minutes a day, whereas if I can get outside as much as possible, definitely has the biggest impact on me.
That's amazing. I love that you have this connection to nature. We're seeing that theme throughout. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so your last career question for this section here is, what's one piece of advice you'd give to someone interested in your field?
I think that for advice-wise is, first of all, the way it's kind of like in sport. If you get into it for the right reasons, as in it's fun, you want to learn, it's your decision, you feel like this is it, and you're passionate about it, then I think people tend to stay in sport longer. They have more fun, they have more satisfaction as a result. And I think the same thing is with research and medicine, is that if it's something that you're passionate about, it's something that you feel like you have some choice over, and it's kind of fun, that you're in a good environment. It doesn't mean it's always going to be that way, but if you go into it that way and you're continuing to feel that way while you're doing it, I think that's the way to stay in it for a long time. And it's taken me a long time to get even to where I am now. But I think I would never change it. And I love what I've been doing, even though my friends probably started working a decade or two ago. But I think it's just that when you're trying to choose the road less traveled, it's pretty fun when it's kind of your thing, your passion, and you just kind of keep that goal like you would in sport in front of you. And then you don't think of it as work anymore.
That's such brilliant advice.
Find your passion and do it because you enjoy it. That's really good.
Right.
Yeah. Sport and exercise medicine is super fascinating to us, and we can't wait to learn. We try to work out another way to learn more about the exciting field and more about what you do. And we came up with the show and tell. So do you have something to show and tell us about?
I do. Yes, let me just reach down and grab it. So I don't, hopefully it's going to fit in the screen. So this is an Olympic torch. So I just thought I would show it to you. Hopefully you can see it in the light. But I'm going to bring it close up because that's what it says is that's better. Yeah, it's just Vancouver 2010, although it might, yeah. So this is the top of the torch, and it's still where some of the ashes are from it, where it hasn't been wiped off by kids playing with it. And yeah, and this is the bottom. So it's supposed to look essentially like a ski, I think was the design for it. And yeah, so what I was able to do, some history behind it, I guess, is that I was one of the people that was allowed to carry the torch over a torch relay in Canada just before the Vancouver Olympics. And the cool design on it is that the maple leaf is there. So the way you remember how to carry the torch is basically that the maple leaf faces your heart, and the flame would just kind of come out of this particular area. And what's interesting is that when you're running with the torch, you're the only one that has that Olympic flame that was been carried over, but it originates, they light the flame in Greece, in Athens. And so you get to carry that. It's not very long that you carry it, but you do. And so I got to carry it in Newfoundland, which is a place I had never been to before. So that was kind of where I was stationed to do that. And the fun fact, I guess, about this is as soon as you're done running the torch and torch goes to the next person and your flame is out, they actually, there's a fuel canister in here, and they cut the wire to it so that you can never put another flame in it. So it's just like, you know, you're done after that, but you can keep the torch as a memento. But I thought it'd be pretty cool if it's too bad you can't relight it. You go to someone's barbecue and kind of light the barbecue or something like that. But alas, I cannot. But yeah, so it's a fun little memento. But I think what it represents to me is that it's I didn't participate in the Vancouver Olympics. It's the Winter Games, and I wasn't that good of a skier. But I think it's one of those things that you can share the Olympic movement with a lot of other Canadians. There were a lot of people cheering me on, people I didn't know. And it's just a very unifying experience to have. And what it just made me realize is that we are connected through a common language of sport. It doesn't need to be at the Olympic level, but that concept of it's a beautiful way to interact with other people that you've never met. Maybe the barriers of other languages or countries and borders might separate you, but being able to participate in sport is one kind of language that we all understand to some degree. So
yeah,
that was incredible.
It was so cool. We were so blown away by that. It's beautiful. It's actually such a beautiful thing because you've already communicated with and connected with so many people about the love of learning that you have in the sport and all of the spirit behind that, and you continue to do that. So that was the perfect show and tell. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
really beautiful also because it looks like you've kept the fire and passion of the Olympics with you.
Yes, so good.
Okay, so thank you so much for that. And I think we just have a few minutes for some audience questions that we had. So shout out to all of you who sent in some questions.
Okay. I'm gonna
While she grabs that, movement break.
movement break.
Nice.
This is the audience question.
Nice.
And we have a few questions. Okay. So the first one is from Sarah. She wants to know, all of my joints are hypermobile. How can I prevent pain and injury? So generally speaking, what would you say? Injury prevention.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, and it also depends on how old Sarah is and things like that. There's a lot of people around. I'm not one of them that have very mobile, flexible joints for sure. I think we're still trying to learn a lot about how to prevent injuries or prevent pain with people that have some hypermobility. It's not always the case that they're going to have more injuries, but certainly some people do. We often talk about getting our, we have a kind of sports team, so not just the doctor, but it could be physiotherapist, it could be strength and conditioning, it could be a coach if she's involved in any kind of sport, but really to have a discussion on that kind of support team to see how we can help with injury prevention and things like that. There's usually a few ways we can approach it. So to Sarah, for you, I'd say, if you can involve a physiotherapist, if you can involve a doctor that knows about these things, then it's probably, it's really good to not just do what we call rehabilitation, but we call prehab. So kind of before you get an injury, going to see what you can do to strengthen all the rest of you, so to kind of to keep you as fit and healthy as possible.
That's great advice, and thank you to Sarah for that question.
Mm-hmm.
Our next question comes from Ryan. Hey, Ryan. So Ryan's question is about supplements. So what's your take on creatine supplements? But I'll maybe add a little bit to that. In your career, do you work with others in a team, for example, where there might be like a nutritionist or something who might help a patient with all these other different types of aspects?
Yeah, ideally, I think of it as the more people that you can have as part of your team, the better. So absolutely, we work with registered dietitians, we work with physiotherapists, occupational health, we can work with, or therapists, I should say, and work with strength and conditioning coaches, the coaches themselves, massage therapists. There's a lot of people that in the sports medicine team are really critical to keeping the athletes healthy and safe. From the creatine perspective, there's a lot of information that goes out there. There's, for me as an athlete and then doctor, one of the things we have to always be careful about is for any athlete that is competing, that you could get drug tested. And so a lot of the problems with these supplements is that for the most part, unless they're certified, and even then it can be a problem, but sometimes even if you have really good intentions, sometimes some of these supplements can have trace ingredients that might not be so good, and things like steroids and things like that have been found in supplements. So it's not that most of us are against the use of some of these, that sometimes they can help your performance, but it's really about what else is in that jar of supplement that you're taking. And so I always advise my athletes and my patients, there are sites to look up whether or not a supplement or a brand is certified, and also be able to have a discussion with either a registered dietitian or your doctor about what supplements might be safe. And again, it's also really dependent on how old you are and that kind of thing. In elite sport or in when you have the possibility of being drug tested. So for 10 years, at any time someone could show up to my door and test me for whether or not I was taking drugs or performance enhancing supplements. So, I mean, that can happen at any time, but essentially the athlete themselves, even if they've been prescribed something, generally speaking, or if they take something in error, it falls on the athletes. That's why I feel like you have to be really careful about those kinds of things.
But I also love the idea that there's a lot of teamwork involved, even in your sport and exercise medicine physician. I think that's really cool. And thank you for the answer for Ryan there.
Okay, so David wants to know.
What's up, David?
Thank you for the question, David. What kinds of sport-related injuries have you experienced?
Yeah, you know what? This is a funny one because like I said, I think at the beginning that I've been rowing for a really long time. I think I've been rowing for something like 28 years. And I've never been injured. And it's really awkward to say that because most people that I treat have gone through injury experience before. I think I had acupuncture once on a tight forearm. And that's it. And it's funny, like, I think probably one day I'm going to get on a boat and just all of a sudden, like, spontaneously combust or fall apart just because I say this now. And now it's like, I don't know what I've jinxed myself somehow. But I think the reason why probably I haven't injured myself is not because I'm a superhuman, is probably because when I've got into sport, and as I said, I've been very gradually progressing, even though I'm sure I would have wanted to rush right to be a national team athlete right away. I think that forced gradual progression, and forced because I was not a natural athlete, actually probably made me progress at just the right speed so that my muscles, bones, everything kind of developed for me to take that load. I've never really had this time where I've like at the top, we were training 3 or 4 times a day, and we would have one day off a week. But that's not where I started. I started maybe once a week. And so I think for athletes that are getting injured a lot, there's always things that I like to try to get at the root of what's happening or why it's happening. But often you'll find that they've maybe progressed too quickly. I mean, I'm also in a sport where it's not a combat sport, for example, so that I'd be like full of injury stories, or a contact sport. Yes, exactly. So that probably, that obviously helps a lot as well. But oftentimes with patients and athletes, we just try to figure out what happened. And sometimes it can be just because they ramped up their activity a little bit too soon.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like your own sport journey was full of injury prevention through your graduate.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Right.
It sounds like potentially you are, for real, a superhero.
I don't think so. But you know what? It also speaks to the team as well, like having a good team around you. So there's some crying in the background.
She agrees.
Someone, yeah, exactly. There might be someone who's injured right now. No, it's okay. It is not a sport injury.
Okay, so our last audience question comes from Alma. Hey, Alma.
Thanks.
Why did you become a sport and exercise medicine physician?
I think I was always drawn to being a sport and exercise medicine doctor just because of the ability to kind of answered it a little bit before about giving back to sport, and just the ability, just because I have such a positive experience with sport, it really just changed who I was, and it changed what I was interested in, and helped me understand the power of a team. So all of that gratitude, I just wanted to be able to do something with my life that felt like I was giving back in some tangible way. So for athletes, for example, that are really putting everything they can into their sport, or even like we talked about, people just wanting to be active for personal health. I think it's a really unique way to continue to encourage them, to continue to maybe reassure them, to help kind of coach them a little bit in terms of being physically active so that they can benefit their whole life. And so I just see that as a way of a cool way, because you learn all the sciencey stuff along with it and how the body works, and then you have this opportunity to use that knowledge for hopefully for the good of the people that you care for.
It's so inspiring.
That's a great answer.
Maybe Alma, you're next.
Yeah, exactly.
So We are currently nearing the finish line here for this interview.
Nice.
So our last question is, what's next for you, Jane?
So right now I'm still I'm doing a lot of fun research. I'm trying to learn how to help people be more physically active. I'm trying to help doctors talk about physical activity and exercise to their patients. I'm still rowing. I help with the next generation of rowers, so I train with them and help kind of mentor them in some way. So I think it's just continuing to try to give back where I can, and yeah, and I don't know, I guess it's just a continuation. Right now I'm just at the start of my new career as kind of a full-time clinician, a scientist. So that means I'm in clinic once or twice a week, and then I'm doing research the other times and teaching and stuff. So I'm just finally, after all these years, got to a place where it's kind of reaching the dream. So yeah, it's just the start of a new chapter already right now.
Well, congratulations and hats.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Steam League. What a wonderful story and an amazing show and tell. And everyone, you can catch the rest of the Steam League superheroes on our YouTube channel and at steamsisters.ca.